At 6:30, we call. Oh, there we go. We call a special meeting to order. But everyone's here except for Rick, so then we see the point. Okay. So, John or Savannah or Mary Kay, is there anything on the agenda that we need to, anything additional?
Nope.
Okay. All right, so this is a special meeting that we call, for a special permit application. Mary Kay, you have the legal.
Yes. No, that's okay.
We'll start with Mary Kay, reading the legal now. If you comment, then we'll get to it.
The legal notice was posted in the Willimantic Chronicle on the 15th and the 22nd of May. The Columbia PZC will conduct a public hearing on Tuesday, May 26, 2026 at 6:30 as a hybrid meeting for the following. PZC 252606, special permit application of Darby Polanski for a family cemetery on Johnson Road for section 21.2.3, number 4 and 52 of Columbia zoning regulations. Map 19, lot 47, zone RA, lot area 3.57 acres. Information on and how to attend the meeting is available at columbiact.gov. If you are unable to attend the meeting, the hearing, you may submit written correspondence to the attention of the Columbia Planning and Zoning Commission at 323 Route 87, Columbia, Connecticut 06237, or by email to John Guskowski at columbiact.gov to be entered into the record. Correspondence must be received prior to the close of the public hearing.
Okay, thank you. All right, so this is a special permit application for a family cemetery plot. Are the plans people here? Are you on? Okay, so thank you for being here. This is probably the last place that you want to be understanding and we understand the circumstances well. So this is the legal process that we have to go through. So we'll open up the public hearing, and you will have an opportunity if you'd like to say anything in the presentation of the application. You don't have to either. And once we get through that, John, I'll just have you probably just mention anything that's pertinent. And then we do have to open it up to audience citizens. So if anyone has anything to say, they can do that. And we'll talk about its dimension and so. So, do you have anything that you would like to bring up along the line with the application law?
I think pretty much everything is given to your staff. So if there's any questions, that's what
Thank you. John, is there anything that you want to go over?
Sure. Just for the record, John Guskowski, town planner. The zoning regulations establish cemeteries as a special permit use in the residential district. There are no distinctions made, family cemetery, church cemetery, municipal cemetery. Cemetery is a cemetery as far as our regulations are concerned, but there are no use specific regulations. So there's no question about density or number of plots or things like that. So what you were really sort of just brought back to is your basic questions of public health, safety, and welfare. If access to the site is sufficient, and if there are any, public health and safety concerns. I'll note that the Department of Public Health needs to be involved for establishment of cemeteries. The applicant did receive a letter of approval from the State Department of Public Health, Sean Merrigan, Environmental Engineering Program, that was dated May 18th. That was submitted for the record. Also submitted for the record was a site plan prepared by Bushnell Associates Engineering that basically shows a gravel driveway that is on an abutting piece of property under the same ownership, essentially, proposed for an easement for access to the private burial area, which will be accessed on property 019-047. It does not have an address yet because there are no structures on site. And a small private burying ground is proposed. Department of Public Health has no issues with it. I have no public health and safety concerns. It's a small private burial area that our regulations just have through this process. But I see no reason why this shouldn't be allowed to proceed.
All right, thank you. I'm happy to do all that, I looked at everything, everything. We're gonna open it up to the public, if the public has any comment, in the audience of citizens portion for this particular special permit, please, have it pertain to this special permit. If you do come out and speak or would like to speak from your chair, just state your name and address for the record. We'll pause there if anyone wants to say anything or ask a question.
And my name is Jean Gold. I live on Johnson Road. I have two properties next to the landscapes. I am not, I first want to give my condolences to the family, and I'm sorry for their loss. I have a problem with a cemetery being built on someone's property that's not, there's nobody living there. I was under the understanding that in Connecticut, we a property that we wanted a cemetery. I could be wrong, but that's what I was told. If I want to sell my property, either one, it brings down the value of the property by having a cemetery there. Who cares for the cemetery? What restrictions are there to bury a person rather than action? It's, you know, who does that? Do they do it themselves? They have somebody come in and like they do at St. Joseph's or Hendrick Cemetery? How does that happen? Who cares for that property, for that cemetery, when they pass? What happens to that cemetery? Is it a public cemetery or a private? Who maintains it? Those are questions that I have. I have a problem with my property value going down because of the cemetery in my backyard. I don't know how to say this, but what is the advantage of having him buried on a piece of property that he doesn't live, if he didn't live on? It was actually his wife's property, not his, technically. Why don't they cemetery where they live instead of there? I have a problem with the value. I have two problems. How are the burial? How does that affect the water? You know, or anything? I don't know. I mean, who buries the person? Is this ashes? Is it for her body? That is going into a cement? There are all questions that need to be answered. If you just put them in a box and it deteriorates, eventually it goes into your water system. And I would like to know what the procedure is on somebody's private property and
Okay,
since I think it needs to be.
okay, well, let's address some of those, as far as, and John, feel free to, if you have any input on this as well, or, Ms. Polanski, you can speak to this as well. I mean, we're working within the health department regulations and state law. So there's no mystery around there as far as the legality of the process of everything. Does anyone want to speak to the long-term ownership and maintenance of the plot? Is that something that we can speak to, or?
I've been on the property since I was 13. We've made property as a family since then. And that's how it was. It's only family. It's not being sold to outside people. It's family only.
And John, as far as, you know, if we look at similar projects or similar permits, notwithstanding the use, I mean, is there any difference between this and any other permanent easement or anything else that may come in front of us?
No, I mean, that the special permit runs with the land. So If at some point the Polanskis choose to sell the property, the successive owner would obviously be aware that there's a cemetery on the property and would have all of the rights to continue its use as a cemetery. And yeah, in terms of type of burial, that's all managed by the Department of Public Health. That's not up to this commission. And the only thing I can say, I'm not a public health official. I do have a degree in hydrology, so I know a little bit about how water moves through soil. Broadly speaking, human remains buried 6 feet under the soil generally do not pose any danger at all to public health, and wells that are several hundred feet away laterally and usually several hundred feet down. There's a far greater danger to you flushing your toilet than burying someone in the backyard from a public health standpoint. But that's all I can say about that.
Robert Chico, Mr. in the event that scenario, I think the area is done with traditional parameters of the cemetery. It's many feet deep, just many feet wide, refilled with dirt, looks like half. Ask if I'll ask them. We probably can use it for children.
And there's a going to the next. There's a question that we have.
Yeah, I understand. I think a lot of those questions are outside of for beauty from the health department, state law, the laws. So here we're looking at as far as land use, which is with the zoning of power regulations, law process. So my assumption is that it would be no different than any other burial. Is there anyone who can speak to that or can we address that at all at this point?
Yes, from the state, I got the statutes. There's statutes relating to the disposition of human remains, mausoleums, columbariums, cemeteries, crematories, and private burials. There's a whole thing of state statute that applies, and that's what's getting reviewed by Sean Merrigan, Department of Health, and that's the guy.
Right, and we have the approvals from the Department of Health. So again, some of these questions aren't necessarily things that we can answer from a zoning perspective. We're here just to see whether this is
Who oversees the process?
the health department and the applicant state laws would oversee that process. So not zoning necessarily, we're just dealing with plans. What's allowed through the department process. Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none from the public, I'm going to turn it over to the commission. Does the commission have any questions on application?
One, is there any plans for any development on the property side?
I have children, and so who I decide to give the property to, there's 3 lots. And they're all approved building lots that I currently. It was a 6 lot subdivision back in the 70s. And so each one is an approved building lot. They have to go through a review if they wanted to build on within the field that this cemetery plot is in, or the front lot, which is out on Johnson, or one back across Carlin. So that they have been approved as building lots. They probably have to expo again because.
And how did you determine the location of the cemetery? It's up against one side of the property, not just to leave the rest of it open?
A couple of things were the orientation to the lot and what everybody felt was the most appropriate. Stone wall there, that's acting as like one of the lot. We have a higher part that sits up on the hill that overlooks it. It's kind of the whole, based on our identification of the lot, layout, it was felt the most. And less disturbance.
A couple questions. Did you say that none of these lots would be sold?
Right, and it's family and it's gonna stay family.
Okay, and there's 80 lots laid out?
Oh,
Lots.
the cemetery itself, yes, none of them are sold. It's only family, and there is that. The calculation is that it allows for choose where they want, so we can orient to my husband and myself at some point. That doesn't mean that they're accepted, but there are grandchildren already.
And you did say, there was an easement on, so, that easement is in place?
Yes.
The easement, the access driveway.
Right. Established driveway through the whole property, and so the easement for the cemetery actually on that.
Then the next question would be, if you're going to visit the cemetery, where would you park?
There's plenty of room there. It's, if you follow that road down, there's lots of room in that area. And the opening in the stone wall to the right of that would also probably be an area level up and established for it. I don't see 50 cars showing up, but let's say.
Service you're gonna have.
Yeah, there's lots of room. It's 40 acres.
Should that be shown on?
We don't have a designation for that, do we?
There's no standard in the regulations about how many spots or what type of spot a cemetery ought to have.
It seems like 80.
We all open up for any additional questions. Yeah.
For 80 family members. That's what the calculation how to, because there's room to establish a buffer on the interior part of the actual cemetery itself, with room in between. And like I said, it's to allow for whatever amount of family members in the future there are. It doesn't mean that they're going to follow that order. To establish like a section of that according. Is there some, and there's some kind of covenant or something with this thing for lots and not rules? That your special permit is dictating it as family cemetery, that automatically. And is the road coming in one lane or two lane? 2 lane. 2 lane dirt road. It's a long driveway that goes throughout the property, and this field and woods side, so there's, you can have a 2 lane without having to build a 2 lane.
I would
Hold on, just 1 second. Okay, there, hold on. We're just going through the commission, and I will open it up in case you get that answer. Any other comments? Okay.
you said that you have some subdivision approval for this property?
It was an original 6 lot subdivision in the 70s. I own 3 of those.
This subject lot being one of the 3 that are owned, but yeah, so it's not going to further re-subdivide. This is one of them.
One.
Okay. This property,
Almost 40 acres.
almost 40. Now, if the next generation decides that they don't want this property, can those be sold even though it's deemed as a family cemetery?
The family cemetery stays no matter what happens to the property in the future. That's why it has to have an easement, because it has to be accessed by family no matter who owns it in the future. The plan is not to have it legal.
Yeah, comment or question from the president? Okay, there's some additional questions.
There's the reference, the diagram, the two column slide. Really, it's a dirt road, and it's not good enough to cause passage shoulder, without infringing on actual roads.
Anybody else have any other comments? And I'm sorry, please state your name and your address.
Just wanted to share something. I'm one of 12 children. We don't have a baby people. And, I don't find this a family cemetery, right, when there's probably about 80, possibly 80. You're talking about, that's not a small cemetery. I don't understand how that. You know, my property is valuable to me as her property is her. She's affecting my group home and my property next to her. Would be nice to be able to see the mirror in the dark.
I have one question for you. Can you just speak to, we're talking about this 80 plot number? This one right here. Can you just tell us a little bit more, because it's not necessarily the 80 plots are going to be used. Is it just on the layout and plan on how you got this number for the maximum number? Can you expound on
Area. Created a 5-foot frame, basically, off the stone. There's gonna be monuments put there, but we're gonna put fence at some point, so there's room off of that. And that's just the calculation it came up to with each spot's, measurements.
All right, there's no other comments on this. Pause for a second. Any other comments from the public?
Maybe what I'm not sure how to do it,
Say your name and address.
Robert Chicko, and 38 name 42 Johnson Road. The reason I said it, both as a state one, and I work at the other. Yeah. I said, I used to live in it. It sounds fascinating. So we spent time in both houses. Right now, in the back of my yard.
This is pertaining to just this.
Yeah, it's not pertaining to the subject. Okay. Was there a question in the back or coming back? Yeah, you have to state your name and your address.
So Kenny, about 36 Johnson Road. Would you explain to me where the cemetery is going?
We have, we can throw the map up.
I could zoom in.
Yeah, you can
We have
provide.
it.
Yeah, if you want that. One last call on. Okay. Probably just start if you're leaving, you can, so we'll go after, yeah.
I have a question after you.
We'll give you a sort of moment to look at it.
I think the window. That's good, so, John, and
The other side of the bus. From the front back.
That's where they're building there? That's where they're building.
I don't know.
You have a specific one for it?
I just asked, is that where they're making their chicken?
Well,
Let me just show him this one.
so keep in mind, I don't know if there's any big questions and everything. We just need to keep those questions related to us. Like, please.
Down by the bridge.
we'd like, for the record, I'm sorry, you need to stand up. It's a big room, so if you don't like staying there, just stay here and give your address again.
Buildings that are on the property.
Okay, are there buildings on the property that are gonna be? They've already owned them? Okay. All right. Okay, any additional questions or comments from the commission? All right, we have a couple choices. We can close out the public hearing and vote. We could extend the public hearing. My preference would be to close it out and have any additional discussions that we need to move to unfinished business and any possible action. Is there any comments before we move forward with anything? Before you do, you want me to switch out the rec? Well, why don't you stay here? We're going to switch on the minutes, but the discussion meeting, why don't you still stay? Okay, so I'll make a motion to close the public hearing. Dave second. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Yes, unanimous. Opposed?
What is the message?
Sorry.
Oh,
So right now, the public hearing is closed. What we'll do is we will move on to unfinished business, which is the discussion or possible action on the special permit application, regarding Lansky. So is there any comment from the commission on which direction we would like to go? Any concern? Okay. I would make a motion to approve the application as presented. Walt, favor second. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Or abstentions? Okay. The application is approved. We appreciate your time. Sorry, I have to go. So, John, is there any other final comments on anything?
No, we'll publish the legal notice and the approval will be effective 15 days after legal notice.
No, you can take it down after today. Yep. Yes, yep.
All right, thanks, everybody. Just so the audience understands, we're gonna adjourn quickly because it's prior to 7 p.m. This will be the close of the special meeting. We'll reconvene at 7. I know it's only a few minutes away. That discussion will be about the POCD, so we'll move that discussion forward. So I'm just gonna make a motion to adjourn the special meeting. Okay, all in favor? Okay, thank you. So we'll adjourn for a few minutes and we'll reconvene at 7. So, thank you. Thanks for everybody.